In this video, we're going to be building up on the foundations that I covered in the last two videos. I will be linking them down in the description below if you guys want to check them out. But if you're just here for a standalone video, we're going to be covering how to graph linear equations, and we're also going to be looking at a word problem example that you will commonly see inside a class problem set, homework set, lecture, and even exam. So it's a pretty useful skill to learn, and we're just going to get right into it. So let's cover what a linear equation looks like. The basis of the equations that you've been solving in class have this type of format. It's just one variable. It's just 3x plus 4 equals 12, something plus something equals something, or something minus, or just one thing on the other side equals something. And we're trying to solve for a variable x to figure out what that number is. And in this case, it would just be 8 over 30. And x would be considered an input value here. Today we're going to be adding another variable. We're going to be adding y. So let's make an equation real quick. This is very basic. This is a linear equation. This is in the form y equals mx plus b. M equaling your slope, b equaling the y-intercept. The y-intercept, let's cover the variables. The slope of the line is how much it's rising and run over run. You probably heard of that, rise over run. So the formula to calculate slope is this. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. y2, the y being your rise, x being your runs. So let's graph this. Let's graph y equals 2x plus 1. Y would be considered an output value. You're not going to touch y. We're going to leave. Let me rewrite it here. X is the input. So whatever a variable you're trying to find, you're going to plug that in for x, and then that's going to get you a y value. And that's how we're going to graph it. So let's make our table. Typically, a table is for beginners like this. We have our x value and our y value. So let's just start with any input value. Let's start with 0. Sorry. Oops. 0. Now, so now we know x is 0. But what is y? So to do that, we have to solve it. Y equals 2. Since x is 0, 2 times 0 plus 1, y equals 1. So now our y is 1. And this will be considered the y-intercept. The y-intercept is a point on a graph where x is 0. That's just what a y-intercept is. And the easiest way to find that is just to let x equal 0 and plug that in. Or you could just cross this out completely and just find this. That's like the quick and handy way to do it if you're in a bit of a rush. Or you can just plug in x if you're not comfortable yet to identify it. Let's start with more values. Let's just keep going by ones. Let's go x equals 1. So now y is equal to 2 times 1 plus 1. Y is equal to 2 plus 1, 3. So now it is 3. Let's get 2 more points on the board here. So let's just keep going. 2. Y is equal to 2. Let me separate these. 2 times 2 plus 1. Y is equal to 4 plus 1 equaling 5. So now our y is 5. This goes there. Let's do one more. Let's go 3. That's like a good number to start and off on. Y is equal to 2 times 3 plus 1 equal to 6 plus 1. Y is 7. These are the points on the line, these will be considered ordered pairs. An ordered pair is a set of coordinates on a graph. And ordered pairs are usually in the format of this. X comma y. The x comes first and the y comes second in the ordered pair. So an ordered pair for 0, 1 would just be 0 comma 1, 1 comma 3. I'm just getting it from the table here. Since x is 2, 2 comes here, and then 5, 3 comma 7. So these would be our ordered pairs that we have here. And now we're going to we're going to now calculate the slope based off of these ordered pairs. In case you were ever asked and you were given, all you need to calculate the slope of a line is 2 ordered pairs. We were given 4 that we solved, we just need 2. So let's pick the middle ones. 1, 3, and 2, 5. So now we have 1, 3, and 2, 5. Now you're going to label them as x2, x1, or y2, y1. Whichever you deem as x1 and x2 is up to you. Typically, I like the bigger numbers to be x2 and y2, so we don't have to deal with negative numbers that much. So 1 will just be x1, 3 will just be y1, first ordered pair, and then 2 will be the x2, 5 will be the y2. So these are our 2 ordered pairs, and now we're going to plug it into the formula. So y2 is 5, y1 is 3, or it could be 3 minus 5, depending how you did it. x2 is 2, x1 is 1, 5 minus 3 is 2, 2 minus 1 is 1, equaling 2. And what do you know? If we go back to the original equation, that's the m value, 2. So that's how you know that this equation is correct and how you're actually plugging in the ordered pairs correctly. It's a great way to check, and it matches up. And that's how you can find the slope. And if they're given the y-intercept, y equals, just plug in 0, 1. Y equals 1. So it's a great, now we're going to actually graph. We're going to use the same one. Now we're going to be able to graph. So let's draw our graph. So typically, a graph is drawn like this. There's usually 4 quadrants. This first quadrant will be Q1. This quadrant here to the left will be Q2. To the bottom of it would be Q3. And this would be Q4. Sorry for that. That'll be for the next problem. Q1 is usually all positive integers. We're just dealing with positive. So the x and the y are both positive. Q2, it's a little different now. The y will still be positive, but the x is now negative. Q3, the y is negative, but so is the x. So it's fun. Q4, the y is still negative, but now the x is positive. It's a great way to remember the first time. So let's label our graph. So the middle point here, right here, dead center, that is always 0. So let's label that. And then forward, since this is the positive axis, this is the x-axis, this is the y-axis. So let's go by ones. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So now let's label to the left of it. And now since we know the x-axis here is negative, we can just go -1, -2, -3. Let's now do the y-axis. The y-axis is the horizontal. The y-axis is this vertical axis, while the x is the horizontal right here. So let's go up here. Since we know it's positive in quadrants 1 and 2, we know that it's going to be positive numbers. So we're just going to go 1, 2, and 3. And then here, we're going to go the same. -1, -2, -3. So it's a good way. I'm going to erase the quadrants now, but it's a good way that when you're first remembering how to graph and how to make your own graph, that you know the quadrants, because then it makes it pretty easy to label that you don't mess up. Now we're going to label our points, which were 0, 1, 1, 3, 2, 5, and 3, 7. So how do you graph it? When you're a beginner and you're first doing it, just label all as x, 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 and the end y, 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 because that's what an x, y ordered pair is. Let's start with the first one, 0, 1. So we know that x is 0. So we find 0 on the graph. 0, let me switch into a different color. 0 is right here, dead center in the red. So we got the x. Okay, now we got to find y. Y is 1. Y is 1 right here. So we just move up and 0, 1 right there. And that is the point 0, oops. I'll just make this in red now because I think it's easier to see. Yeah. I can just use my white and I'll use blue actually. So that's the first point, 0, 1, which is in red right there. So let's find the next point, 1, 3. So we find x equals 1. X equals 1 is right here. And y equals 3. y equals 3 is up here. So now we just put the dot right here as 1, comma 3. Pretty neat. So now we have 1, comma 3. So both of these have been plotted. Now let's look at 2, comma 5. Let me make this just a bit bigger. I'm not the best drawer, so I'm sorry. I'll definitely try to get better at it in the coming videos because we will be graphing quite a bit. So let's do an orange. So 2, comma 5. Let's find it x equals 2. And now let's find 5. So x equals 2 is here. 5 is all the way up here. And we just shade that in. So the basics of it is you just find the x coordinate first. And over the y coordinate, you just jump to that space and just boom right there. Because look, it fills a requirement. X equals 2 is down there. X equals 5 is down there. X equals 1 is down there. X equals 3 is down there. 0 and then 1. It's a good way to check if you're just getting confused. I will just erase some of this. Let's look at the final point, which we'll do in a green. 3, comma 7. So let's find x equals 3 is right here. 7, so we're going to jump 7 spaces to right here. And that is the ordered pair 3, comma 7. I'll just draw up the points so you can see. And that is just, yeah, and then you know you've done it correctly when you can connect it in a line like this. Actually, you can't even see that, I'm sorry. Black on black, that's a terrible choice. Let me just do it in blue. So I'll try to make a good line. Yeah, it's a pretty steep line. See this blue line connecting it? That's how you know. A linear equation is always a solid straight line that is either going up or down. Sometimes it can be horizontal, it could be vertical, but those are special cases we'll cover in a later video. And that is just the basics of how to graph and how to solve for slopes and how to identify y-intercepts and the general equation. Let's move on to the last example that we have here, which will be a word problem. So at the airport, you can change your money from dollars into euros. The service costs $5. And we'll put a negative because you're subtracting money here. You're losing money. If it costs something, that means you're going to lose the money. So we'll put a negative there. And for every additional dollar, you get 0.7 euros. So we're getting 0.7 euros for every additional dollar. Make a table for this and plot the function on a graph. Use your graph to determine how many euros you would get if you gave the office $50. Okay, so let's get into it. So let's write the equation. So remember, the general format for a linear equation is y equals mx plus b. So we know y. We don't know m, x, or b, but we can figure those out. So the easiest way to find what m or the slope is for wording this for every additional dollar or for every other thing, something that labels multiplication will usually be the m or the slope. In this case, points, since we're exchanging, it makes it easier to identify. Since we're exchanging from dollars to euros, the only way to really do that is by multiplying. So we know that 0.7 is going to be our slope. That's m. So now we have dollars. Now we have minus 5 here. We still have the 5. So the dollars will be our x. That's what we're gonna be inputting dollars, so x is always the input, so it's dollars. And we're subtracting 5 because it costs $5 every time you use the service, so it's minus 5. And this 5 is our b slash y intercept. So now we're gonna make a table out of this, like we did in the last example. Let make that a better line. So let's start with $5 because it'll just cancel out. So let's start with x equals 5. 5 minus 5 is 0. 0 times 0.7 is 0. Pretty simple. We'll go by 5s. So let's go 10. So y is equal to 0.7 times 10 minus 5. 0.7 times 5, which is 3.5. 3.5. Let's jump up a little. Let's go 20. Y is equal to 0.7 times 20 minus 5. 20 minus 5 is 15. 15 times 0.7 is just 10.5. Now let's go all the way to 50. So they're asking how many euros will we get if we gave the office $50. So now this is where we're actually solving for the problem. So y equals 0.7 parentheses 50, because that's our input, minus 5. 0.7 times 45, which is 31.5 euros. So that's our answer. Y equals 31.5 euros. That's the answer. They said make a table, which we did. That's the table. Now we just gotta do one last thing. We have to plot this function on the graph. So let's plot it. It's gonna be the same old two-dimensional graph here. Now we're also gonna have to scale this, not by ones, because it will take too long. So we'll scale it by tens. So we have 0 here. We have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, negative 10, negative 20, negative 30, negative 10, negative 20, negative 30, negative 40, negative 50, and then 10, 20, 30, 40. This will always be the same format. The top y and the x-axis to the right will always be positive, while the left part of the x-axis will always be negative, and the bottom part will always be of the y-axis being negative. It is the same exact format every time as shown up here. Same exact one because of the quadrants. That's just how two-dimensional planes work. So now let's start plotting the points. So x equals 5, which is going to be the middle of the 0 and 10, is right here. And y equals 0. Oh, 0. So y is already 0, so we don't need to move. Bam, that's our first point. 10, and let me put this in red so you can just see it a little better. X equals 10. Okay, it's right here. 3.5. So it's going to be like a roughly right here. 20 and 10.5. So x equals 20 is about right there. And 10.5 is approximately right there. You can see it's forming a line, which is good. That's what you want. And now we're looking at 50. 50, 31. So 50 is all the way at the end here. And x equals 31.5 is around right here. So boom. Now we just make our line like that. And this line will also extend both ways. So you can see it. I know mine's a bit curvy, but I'll also do it here so you can just see it. It's going to go all the way down. It's a continuous line that stretches from both ends. I'm actually going to try to make this better. I'm sorry. And you can find various different points. Like here, negative 10, negative 10. We could try to plug it in and see if it's approximately correct. So y is equal to 0.7. Negative 10 minus 5. Y equals 0.7. Negative 10 minus 5 is just negative 15. And negative 15 times 0.7 is negative 10.5. So the order pair is 10, negative 10.5, which is pretty accurate because as you can see, it falls right here on the line. So yeah, our graph is pretty accurate. Although a bit curved, it is a sketch, so we don't need to make it perfect. Although if you have a ruler or a straight edge, it definitely makes it a lot more accurate if you're actually going to try to use it. You can also use just graphs to find, instead of plotting in the equation, you can just use the equation. Sorry, you can just use the graph to find various points. Like negative 30 here, it's saying it's gonna be negative 30, which is probably correct. And instead of just plugging negative 30 in the equation, you can just look at the line and make a approximation and be like, oh, negative 30 is negative 30. That's it. If it asks for negative 30. And yeah, that's about it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you guys understood how to do this way better. And if I made this a bit confusing, definitely give me some feedback in the comments how I can do it better for future videos. But yeah, that's about it. That's gonna be it for me. Have a wonderful good day, guys.